Meeting is now in order. First on the agenda is the annual meeting on the Planning Commission. Stephen Cox, you know everybody here?
Yes.
So we won't introduce. So, why don't you tell us about your experiences for the last year and ask us any questions that we can be of help with.
Yeah, I think as always, representing the planning commission, we just want to make sure that we are, sending you the information you need in the way that you need it. Making sure that as you have charged us with, that you often would send you something that is clean, as you say. That we've gone through the discussions with the applicant to make sure that they understand where they're in line with our ordinances and regulations, where they're not, and work through those issues, sometimes major, sometimes minor, working with the borough engineer, going through the stormwater issues or the zoning issues, setback issues, and various development applications. And so that my question in some ways to you is to make sure, do you feel that you're getting the information that's passed to us and that we're doing our job diligently and fulfilling our responsibilities for you?
I think so. Tom?
Yeah, Steve, just a quick comment. I know Uday's a member of the planning commission, but we're trying to look at different things. Our pre-meeting has to do with the saldo and, maybe looking for things that need to be tweaked that aren't working well. Saldo, I think, was effective in 2013. I believe. And it really hasn't been reviewed since 2013 in any great detail.
Right.
So I guess what I'm asking you, either directly or by way of Uday, when you come across, if you do come across something that's awkward and could be improved,
Right.
Obviously the approval would have to go through the council.
Yes.
But if you could send that staff for consideration, we could at least discuss it and be aware of things that are not working well for you or hindering what you want to do. Or if you just say, doggone, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense. I can read it, but it's an impediment to getting out.
No, I can appreciate that our responsibility is not simply to look at applications through the lens of a bad rule, so to speak, but also to identify, we've seen this a couple of times now. Perhaps this is not the way that other townships and boroughs are doing it. Perhaps something needs to be progressed along and modified. Yes.
Yeah, with the exception of Mayor O'Keefe, I don't think anybody else at the table was on board in 2013 when that was adopted. So, oh, Max, I'm sorry. Oh,
Kathy.
Oh, you. That's fine. Basically, everybody here wants to party. I'm just sure out without.
I think it's helpful even when there comes up an issue between planning commission and Tim, where Tim thinks it's one thing and you guys read it a different way.
Yes.
It'd be awesome if we could hear that came up and what exactly was going on, so we could take a look at it too.
Yes.
Because where reasonable minds can differ, maybe there's something we can do to close that gap and make it not so vague and not be readable both ways.
Obviously we take Tim's input seriously.
Yeah.
We take Sean's input seriously. We take, Commissioner's input seriously.
Yeah.
But ultimately, yes, each commissioner needs to come to a conclusion on a case by case basis and vote accordingly. But maybe it shouldn't stop there. We should make sure that, hey, there was a discrepancy here of opinion. Maybe we need to escalate that up to make, hey, just so you know, there are 3 ways of looking at this one thing. Maybe we ought to figure out the alignment for the future.
It would be great if it was passed up that way. And like if you had 2 of your folks saying no, or one saying no, if we could hear what the dissent, why was there a dissent? What was the interpretation issue that was going on? That would be awesome, because you don't get that right now. And I think it may not be a too subtle point, actually. It may be a really important one, because it's an indicator where we might need to look a little bit further at the wording. The definitions are always a killer in the law, and you just never know until it comes up.
And obviously, my hope would be that through the deliberations of the commission, that a commissioner wouldn't simply vote nay. I think it behooves us to
Why?
the applicant understands why that commissioner has voted no.
Yeah.
So
So like we call them dissenting votes or whatever, but I'd love to hear why was there a dissent?
Yes.
I think that would be great. So-
Understood.
So as chair, you can actually push them and say, why are you dissenting? Tell us why. Yeah,
Fair enough.
that would be great.
Any other questions for Stephen?
I think you guys do a great job. I do appreciate you. Sorry, I'm back up.
I do want to mention that in particular, that I feel that there's a benefit, so I appreciate that there's a linkage between us through the day or, assuming that will.
It's good to have a liaison like that with
Yeah,
when it's allowed. There's lots of our committees that's not allowed. But
Yeah.
this one there is.
No, I find it beneficial, not just council music, but that role itself.
Yeah.
Renee?
I'm good.
Yeah.
Thanks, Steve.
Mayor.
Thank you. I'm good. Thanks for everything.
Okay.
Thanks for everything. Steve.
All right, good. Thank you very much. Keep up the great work.
All right.
Thank you. Thanks.
Guess you noticed that our seat is absent here from our manager. Reed had to go home ill today, so we're gonna have staff fill in a lot here, and they'll be calling on you. Okay. And we're gonna start right off with deer calling. Zach, I noticed you had a report in there, Wissahickon, Shed.
Yeah, it was Lincoln Valley Trail Associations. Since it's in my report, do we just want to cover it when we go through staff? Or we want to cover it now?
Let's do it now. Okay.
Do it now? That's fine. So when I was out in Hershey at conference, I attended one of the sessions for deer calling. Wissahickon Trails, they're essentially the equivalent of Allegheny Land Trust out here, but they cover Montgomery County out east, so really suburbs. Same situation and issues we have. Essentially, trail park space next to suburban sprawl, and they're like us. They're dense, densely populated. I have their contract. A lot of their things in their contract are things we want to implement into our deer calling program. I think we would take it a few steps further in marking our cameras and our climbers or stands that we put into the woods, like the old suburban whitetail did. Also having tags and vehicles of the hunters that are supposed to be there so that the police can have those as well if they see them there early in the morning or as sun's going down in these spots. And the other proposal I said with Reach, and I believe we can pull this off, would be to keep it almost in-house. So between our employees and people who are what I call friends of the park, there's other park directors out there, there's other people who work in our communities. If we know who's on our lands and know that they are of the right character and of the right care of our parks, I believe we can run a lot safer and protected program out of our parks and lands that we have within this borough. There's just a couple of things I want to clean up in their contract.
Did the Wissahickon group have a plan like we had in the past with suburban whitetail?
Yes, they had a group in before and they're like 1,300 acres. So they have even a lot more land than we have.
Right.
Now they're all private.
Now they're all private. They're all run out of their association runs all their deer calling.
Yeah.
There's a lot of townships jumping on board with what they're doing out of the east suburbs. The Philly suburbs are no different than what we see in our neighborhoods here.
So based upon that input and what you gleaned, do you think you have some recommendations for us?
I fully believe we can write a contract based off of this one and have something ready to go within the next 30 days. Because early archery starts in September.
Right.
So if we're gonna run it out of in-house, we have to do it now, because we gotta start making sure the hunters get their permits and their doe tags.
Right.
To be hunting in these, in the different areas that they're gonna be.
Okay. Sounds good. Go for it.
All right, I'll put it together.
And the thought is that if we do a more thorough job in our lands, that's gonna affect all the surrounding landowners, right? All our residents. Is that right?
And we can take input from residents if they want their land hunted or something.
Okay.
We can certainly go scout and see if it's able. Archery's not bad. Archery's only 50 yards, but you know, is it a single homeowner gonna get you on their land? Probably not. But if there's a box of 6 or 8 of you,
Got it.
or if you're someone like Tom who has backs into the woods,
Yeah.
then
We have that too, so that'd be interesting, so we have to have like a computer, like sign up for some, once you get this going, where the homeowner would go, hey, I got issues, my buddies around me got issues, come over.
and we can go, like I said, we can scout out. Because even the 50-foot rule doesn't apply if you're not, like, if your back's to the house,
Yeah,
it doesn't apply.
I know where you can get 10 right now, okay, we're good.
I know, they're grazing right now with all the rain that's been going on.
All right.
So yes, that's,
This is encouraging.
Yeah, it's good.
We may want to tweak our ordinance, you know, just looking it up, and we talked about doing this once before. Over some other property that we own, because right now it says it's not permitted to hunt for or take any game or wildlife or discharge a firearm or bow of any description into or upon any borough grounds, facilities, and borough parks in the borough of Franklin Park, except where it may be designated by posting the hunting is permitted. So that's sort of more open, you know, you post some Limber Park and it's open to everybody. If we want to tighten that up, you know, with permission of the borough or.
there
you know,
are,
granted.
all of our parks are marked no hunting.
Yeah.
Except the ones we do allow. I mean, the only one we don't allow is Old Orchard for obvious reasons. All the other ones do have hunting by borough permit only signs in them already.
Yeah. So, yeah. We can talk a little bit more. I mean, that might be all right, because it doesn't say by permit or anything else, but it's by posting that hunting is permitted, if it's permitted via getting a permit and approval, there is a level of control there. Read that, that looks like it's just, hey, if it says hunting permitted, it's open season to use
Yeah,
it.
we don't have any hunting permitted, open.
Yeah.
Hunting permitted signs anywhere. Instead, most of them are actually tagged around the borders, posted no hunting.
Yeah, right.
And then inside the actual parks themselves, they have signs that by per permit, just so, I mean, obviously, you go walk in Lynbrook and it's hunting season, you may see somebody. Lynbrook's a little easier to hide in, but Blueberry is, you know, there's not a ton of all the trail land.
Get more, I mean, that's the other thing, we're expanding, or giving it.
But yeah, we can, you know, if we gotta post more things around, it's easy enough to do.
We would set up to do the testing. One of their things that they're doing is they're gonna have shooting at targets and being certain that everybody that's hunting, if we're following their direction.
And we'll do some testing. We can either run them up to North Park as a range, or honestly, I think I have 4 targets sitting in my shed right now. I think the YMCA has about 6 or 7 of them sitting in their back room right now. There's enough targets within our right here that we can pull out, have a day or two where we're testing them. But if you can't hit the target that's in here, I don't know how you got your license.
One of the things we're saying here is we must have going to the hunter safety course, but I forget what year they made that mandatory, but I know certainly my son would, he wouldn't even get a license unless you went to the course. And I think that's probably done. I know I didn't have to, I was too old.
I did.
Well, that's,
I went when my son took it, but it wasn't mandatory for a license back in the 1960s.
I don't know if it's still, I've been out for a few years. As of few years ago, though, it still wasn't mandatory for archery to take the class. It was only for gun, rifle. You know, I took that when I used to shoot rifle 100 years ago, but
Which is a good course. I mean,
Yeah.
the state course for new hunters is very good. And all weekend, but then, like Friday night, Saturday and Sunday.
and that may be something, especially for this year, because we're a little late getting into it, we may want to just require experienced hunters this year, which like I said, I don't think we're gonna see new people, brand new hunters unless they're a father, son, something like that. I don't think we're gonna see anybody new coming out in this year's program.
Thank you. Okay. Good deal, thanks. Next is New Borough, I'm sorry, Cattell Radio Service update. Reed was gonna report on that. He did send Luke and Max and I an email today saying that he's kind of stuck. And he doesn't know where to go from here as it relates to how to do RFPs regarding this, or who the RFP should really go to, and maybe we need to think through again the approach as it relates to be certain that both the concerns of the residents and that might be in the area of a cell tower, as well as the great concern for the safety of the citizens of Franklin Park. So, in a way, it looked like he was posing again to perhaps get a consultant that could guide us through this, but I'm not sure that's what he was saying, and so I think it is. Yeah. We have established the fact that we need to improve communications, that we need a combination of large cell towers and perhaps some smaller towers. But where they go and how many they should be is still a decision that needs to be made, and we're kind of concerned about how we make that decision. So, yeah,
What my thought would be, we did have a consultant that did the report.
right.
So why, if we were gonna bring somebody in, I would assume that firm would be able to assist in an RFP.
Good point, maybe. I don't know if they have any.
I think Regis' point was, and I'm paraphrasing, it was kind of, let me read this. I know we just paid a consultant to do a study of our borough-wide service, but I believe that maybe time to call an expert who's concerned with our needs and not the needs of the providers. So that I think his concern is if we put out an open call for RFPs, we may get drastically different submissions, and how do we judge one against another compared to our needs? So he thinks that maybe if we bring in a consultant that says, looks at the report and says, here's what we need, they can come up with a more structured approach to it. Say, this is what we think the borough needs from the study, instead of you tell us what you need to these companies. Does that make sense?
It does to a degree, but I think the one thing we have to keep in mind is we can get proposals. We want to dictate we don't want to dictate exactly what needs to be done for one major reason, because it's really what would the market support. I mean, we have our skin in the game as our local fire service and police and emergency communication. We certainly want the residents and everybody to have the cellular service and the other parts of that are going to support the power or whatever infrastructure we need. So I guess my concern would be, we talked to one or two firms, and I think that my takeaway was it's going to be somewhat market driven. Like one of the options they gave us was 3 big towers and 15 small ones, or whatever the number was. And the issue there was, one consultant told us, nobody's going to pay for those small ones, unless they just don't get enough bang for the dollar on how funding. They can't sell space on those. They're more like relays from the big ones. So I don't know. Maybe Reed has a good point. I didn't see that email.
Yeah, well, I will forward it to everybody here, but why don't we, since he's the one that's doing all the research and he went through 12 inches of paper that was left over from his predecessor, and I'll how about if we defer it till the pre-meeting on the 17th?
I think it's a good point, and I think the one thing to remember is we can ask them all individually, and we're gonna end up with an apple, an orange, a pear, a grapefruit, and a watermelon, and then we're gonna say, my goodness,
Right.
which one's the best value, which one do we need to do? So setting some guidelines, we may not be able to pin it down 100%, but I think setting the major guidelines that all of them have to meet would make evaluation of proposal much easier.
Okay,
John,
yes,
just to add to that, I think like when you issue an RFP, aren't there like specific items that you're listing, right?
Usually.
The vendors.
Yeah.
And then, to issue this, do you have to have like something in the, does that be published? Like in the business matters?
I mean, it should be, I mean, an RFP is not competitive bidding, you know, it's not going through that process, you're not going with the lowest bidder. You know, it's requesting for proposals, so there's not the same steps of you have to advertise it twice with this amount of time in between. But you do want to get as much information out there and get as many responses as you can. And I did, I mean, I pulled the 2017 RFP and it was very targeted to a specific location.
Okay.
You know, here, what would you do with the, you know, would you construct a cell tower here? And that's not what, you know, Regis is looking for and is talking about. He, you know, is thinking of somebody with a level of expertise to essentially develop the RFP, put it out there, as opposed to saying, you know, we have identified this piece of property, we have an interest in. Could you put a cell tower out? What would a lease look like? Things like that. It was a broader base, and I think that's where you sort of hitting the wall, saying, well, wait, I can't do an RFP. I don't know what we're actually looking.
I think it all has to be tied to the level of service that you desire at the end of the, whatever it's provided.
Yeah, that's the major milestone for me.
Because I'm going from memory from that study, but I think the one that included the most towers and the most sub towers, I think gave good coverage. Was it like 85% of the residents got good coverage? And then some of the other ones were like 70% good, and there was different levels who came back. And those weren't really locations, those were just the general.
Facilities, where you, how many facilities do you need in the borough to get your emergency broadcasting and radio stuff, right?
right. Better plan. New borough logo review. Yeah. Design consultant. And maybe we can. I can read those in there. The reconcerning here, so we did, okay. So an email went out regarding the new ones. Everybody see them? Any comments, preferences?
Another new round or sorry?
No, another new round.
I don't think he sent it out.
You did?
What he said to me before he left this evening was
Okay.
they were going to present it.
Okay.
I haven't seen.
I actually was here meeting with Reed and I just happened to be here and he showed it to me. I think for one, in the discussion we had, there wasn't any one particular one that struck out to us again, and probably still needs some more modification going forward to what we have.
Okay. So we're gonna defer.
I would say so.
Okay.
Well, wait, we have a timeline on it for
That's fine, yeah, we don't have time.
And I can email it.
Why don't we take a look at it and see what we can come up with?
Yeah, because we're running up against printing deadlines for 5 to 10 stuff.
And it's not rocket science, right?
Well, I know, it's hard.
Yeah, it's
That's harder.
much harder, it's also productive.
the act started to get banners printed and all the stuff for the festival, which is only about 6 weeks away.
Well, we have a current logo.
8,
That's the 3 leaves.
I just emailed them to
Okay.
everybody.
Oh, no. Maybe we could.
That's not it.
Andy.
Hurry.
Can I,
I could, you
Can I
may jump on the screen share.
Email to Andy.
can I?
If you wanna come on.
Oh, I see, okay.
Is it
green
green
color or
Elaborate.
tree.
We put this up, Andy, or?
Yeah.
As soon as Luke logs in. Oh, okay.
So I do look, log in. There you go.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right.
Okay, of course, we all have them up on the screen now, right?
Uh,
Microphone or audio.
It's, yeah, Andy, if you let me share it and share it, I have it up.
He's almost there.
Hang on. You should be able to share.
All right, so it looks like there's multiple sheets. So option one,
And it's option one, tree.
Yeah, tree.
No, not.
let me know if I should do the next one.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So I can see you in here.
A little too loud, but.
No, I meant this one. I'm discussing the top and,
Those are
number two.
two, yeah, I got you.
Then there was a third.
There's actually four, there's four. This looks like Audubon Society to me. I'm just not for this one. Yeah, I'm a no on this.
I'm a member of the Audubon, so I'd be confused.
There you go. Yeah, they might be too, I don't know.
Okay, I like the tree.
actually,
Yeah.
that was Regis' favorite too.
Yeah, the tree's really good.
For number one, the
Yeah,
tree
the
was.
first one, the tree's nice. Oh, you want to see the color? I think the color can be.
This one too.
Colors.
There's one more. Never mind. Mission statements.
So what about this,
One would be the best.
this color with that
Option two, first one.
tree, is that the same color? No.
No, this is.
The only difference of the
Yeah.
second one is a
This
lot
one,
of
this
times
one I have to do.
it's not in color.
So with black and white, it's gonna look wacky.
Because they
Yeah.
had all kind of information and.
Yeah, Bradford Woods has a circle over
Yeah,
there.
it looks weird, you know. And the tree also look architectural. Yeah. Maybe we could have a little flowers around the base.
Christmas we put all.
That was, what if we use that tree, but use the color from that tree?
Like I said, I just.
Is it a- is it a bad color?
You don't like the colors?
Yeah, if we could switch. I agree.
No, it's like.
I think we agreed on the tree. Why don't we let our consultant come in the color?
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. What if it was a nice tree color instead of this, whatever?
A dead tree.
Dead tree color.
Yeah, it's brown.
It's down here.
Yeah, to reproduce on paper.
What if you took some of the colors out of option two and put them in option?
Yes,
It's a color. I personally,
Everything.
Like that lighter.
I agree.
color. Yeah, I think they should do,
So,
they should tweak the color a little bit.
Yeah.
on number one.
well, we really need to get the signs ordered. Now.
some of the colors like.
Is there a merger? Because you have all the options down the side too. They're fine.
Other things is that
That's.
I thought these were just various,
Yeah.
really, if you can consider the big ones, the logo, then these are just different variations. of
Depending
that logo.
upon,
Because we have to get advertisements.
depending upon the use
That's
of
right.
what you're going to use it for, that's the option.
They're not really the options so much, this is just, you're
Yeah,
gonna, these are
I
different.
usually, I try to
Oh,
get
it's
those
just gonna say
out.
Frank.
Typically,
Right.
and typically what's going on.
Even 10 or 15 days working on, get them printed and shipped out.
If you look closely at the tree, you'll see Ben Franklin's pencil.
They said if they want.
What about the bird? Is the bird in there too?
We're on in for a couple days.
Yeah,
I would say we don't have time. until the next
bunnies
meeting.
too.
Yeah, we're buddies.
Like saying we have emergency, we gotta have like we gotta move this.
Yeah.
So I think we need to decide because lead time and getting stuff printed, so there's 30 days notice, right, that the printer needs it, you can take the stuff around the borough.
Yeah, if we wanted advertisements for the borough, usually I'd stick those signs out, the
Right.
18 by 24s, the first week of June. So, yeah, and like I said, we're 2 to 3 work weeks, 10 to 15 days print and ship to me without having to pay ridiculous costs.
So we'll let the designer decide on the color with you and
That seems
Kathy
right.
and Donna.
You can do the color?
Kathy-
No, Kathy and Donna can decide. on the color.
Yeah, let Kathy and Donna.
If I've learned anything, maybe my house.
But the logo itself, essentially, that's there.
Yeah.
We got it.
Right, got the logo.
The colors.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Go
Dave
number-
Franklin Park.
Number one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We got it, thank you.
John, I suggested to Reed that maybe we should have 2 trees or 3 trees. He actually did not respond.
Yeah. So just we'll change the color a little bit.
Right.
It's this one, right?
Yeah, I think it's the right one. It doesn't look like any of our surrounding neighbors either, which is always the case.
All right, so we're good?
Yeah.
Okay.
Change color a little bit?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that was going to try to be a the one thing, I guess.
Next on the agenda is, our favorite subject, discussion, pickleball posting on Facebook. A couple of comments in advance here. Let's keep this discussion specific to the postings. We don't want to decide tonight anything in regards to a decision regarding the use of the pickleball courts. That's going to be reserved for May 17th. But as you all know, there was a posting on a Facebook page called Franklin Park, although it's not our Facebook page. It is one that's called Franklin Park. If you just go to Facebook and type in Franklin Park, it comes up. As of this morning, there were 46 comments regarding it, 17 likes, and 2 shares, as I recall, regarding pickleball at Orchard Park. Sadly, there were some comments made that, such as decisions that were made in back rooms behind closed doors.
That was the answer. So it's not even a comment.
So that's true. And unfortunately, that's inappropriate,
Very inaccurate.
inaccurate, and hurtful. And so the question becomes, what do we do at this point? Do we let it go? We know what we've done. We know what the situation is. But what do we do? Yes, then,
I would like to speak to this.
please.
I read those posts. Found them very disturbing. Very disrespectful to this council, very disrespectful. And I'll tell you that the statement that this council has been involved in backroom deals or closed door deals is an outrageous untruth. Outrageous. I'm the longest sitting person on this council. I've been here 14 years. I'm in my 14th year. I don't miss meetings. I don't miss meetings. And I haven't been going on vacation for 2 or 3 weeks either. My wife was ill and we were at home. And this council works very hard, puts in a lot of time at these meetings, lots of discussions. And if you've ever been here to some of our meetings here involving some court issues, we're here till midnight. We do the very best that we can to make best decisions we can for this community. I'm proud of myself, what I've served. I'm very disappointed when I see these kind of posts where we're being accused of backroom deals, closed door deals. That's a complete lie. Very offending. We have to make decisions. That's what we're elected to do. We're elected to come here, hear all the things that's going on in the borough. Many times we have to make several decisions about those things. We have to make a decision. That decision makes some people happy. It makes some people angry. But that's the process. That's all I have to say, Mr. President.
Thank you, Dennis.
I couldn't agree more, Mr. Mayor. Since 2020, we've addressed this issue. Every single time that we've addressed this issue has been in public, at a public meeting. We've had meetings at the park. We've had meetings around Old Orchard to listen. We've had, I've lost track of how many. Every single one of them has been public, open to the public. We have never, as far as I can remember, discussed this issue, even in executive session. So to suggest that we made a closed door decision, it's a complete fabrication and it's offensive. And the people that made this post were even at some of this, which is why I find it even more offensive. But I'll let it be there. I do think that we should respond. I do think that we should set the record straight. Point out that every single one of our meetings, numerous meetings, public, that this compromise was agreed to by everyone that attended those meetings, or the vast majority of them, that it wasn't some random shot in the dark, that we tried different options, including limiting hours, changing hours. This isn't just some random decision by people that don't care, because that's the way it's been portrayed, and that's certainly not going to happen.
No comments.
I would like to, because we have the record there, and I'm thinking that whether we can put the kind of like list of the kind of like public meeting or work session and discuss this issue and put someone like, for example, and we discussed in 2020 and which work session, which regular meeting or something like, or like we also put some information like how many meetings that our council has had with that residents from the community. We put some detailed information together, and because whatever we say, we need to have something that some evidence to show residents that we have tried so hard to reach this agreement, and we are still working on this one. The comments, and we can make the comments whatever, but that's probably won't be able to really, to be honest, help that much, because we all have feelings, but we need to have something solid to show the people that we have done that a lot to to help them solve this issue.
I think what John was suggesting is that the response, the most appropriate response would be, these are all the sessions, all the work sessions, all of the meetings that we have discussing this and the dates. And is
Yeah,
that it?
yeah, exactly. Because and we can say something like your comments is really like disrespectful or something like, but that's the thing, and so it won't be able to change, especially in some people's kind of mind. And but we have like, if we have a list of the, and meetings that we have discussed this issue, or the meeting that we have at with the residents, for example, that we visit at the community and also like hear from that the residents living there and just this kind of thing, just and that may work, better than that the expression of feeling,
No, I agree. with you. I think it needs to be said, sure, if you want to put numbers, I think it needs to be said, we track minds.
Yes.
That was relentlessly sought out. Everyone's opinion on this matter, that we did a sound study. I mean, that this wasn't just some random closed door meeting as it's portrayed.
It seems to be an ongoing theme that the meetings that we have in this room are closed door meetings, and they aren't. The only closed door meetings are executive sessions, which are by law closed. Everything else is open. For a while, the question was, well, if it's not a voting meeting, is it a public? Yes, it is. They're all public meetings. The only rare exception is the executive session, which is announced, but it's not available.
Right, and we talk about what topics we can talk about in those meetings.
Sure.
And I don't think, pickleball's ever been one of those topics.
No, because it's not an appropriate discussion.
I like Uday's idea that you should post on the doors, please enter or something.
Yeah, you're welcome. Welcome. Come on in.
Yeah.
Doors are open, please enter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I'm gonna take a contrarian view on this. I think responding is not. It might like be one of those to like counter it, but what's gonna be effective? If you're gonna respond, the response should just be just a reminder. All meetings are publicly open. Please refer to the agenda on the borough site, nothing more. Because you will go down a rabbit hole that is just gonna continue on, and I don't use Facebook, so but I can imagine that this probably has another growing comment, just like the grid topic. The door's open, like literally it is open. See now, and like Brian said, you want them to close this executive session, so just put the reminder out. And that's it.
By the way, we as part of like our expanding in our technology and communications today for the very, I'm pleased to report, we had our agenda posted on the Facebook page for Franklin Park, and that was
There you go.
fantastic. So I mean, we're trying to reach as many different ways and avenues as we can to get to people.
I think as a minimum, and I don't disagree with you, I think that's probably getting into that verbal battle on the social network is a losing proposition. However, I think it's important that in the minutes of these meetings, the concerns that are expressed here are perhaps in more detail than you do. Kind of compromise. Kathy, I know that's a task.
She can do it.
But she can do it, yeah. It's the magic thing.
And just to provide the evidence to show that the effort that we have taken to address this issue is not like make it the comments or fight with or argue with people, and that doesn't help at all.
I think we've expressed our feelings and concern on this because it's real. Okay, concrete curb removal options. Gary, please step in here. Reach, and actually it was your proposal.
Well, we did the road tour.
Yes.
And also, everybody said that they agreed upon doing something with the curbs in Fox Chase Drive. Okay, checking into it, finding out from the milling company, they're gonna have an upcharge on milling these curbs off. Okay, which I put in there that they give me a price of it's gonna be $10 a foot to mill it off, because they have to make an extra 2 passes. The full length on, curb length on all the way around, 2 passes just to get that curve off before they get down to going the regular street. So, money wise, they gotta make up something to do that for milling that off, okay, to get that curve, if we go that route. When I talked to the milling company, they recommend if we go that route, mill those off, or we should use this Petroseal or Petroflex matting or membrane that you put, it's a 12-inch wide or an 18-inch wide, whatever you decide on, to put the membrane where the concrete curb goes into the asphalt. You put it across it, it helps bond that, or it helps take the flex out of it to where it has less chance of cracking the new surface of the asphalt. Once the
Gary,
asphalt-
help me, but go back a little bit. $10 a foot, so you're talking about.
$10 additional, additional foot.
So you're talking about
We're talking,
$2,000 a
we're
mile,
talking,
There's a,
we're talking
$104,000.
3,600 feet of curb, approximately 3,600 feet of curb, which is gonna add $36,000 to our,
You're on the test you're talking about.
there's an,
yes.
Okay.
And that's on there, that's option one, part of option one there. And I was just putting out some,
yeah. it's a-
I was just putting out some numbers on like an option 1, 2, 3, even on the option, let me get down to option 3, where it says continue to subcontract curb work out, or we can even do a option 4 in the back to where we did smaller amounts of curb work too before we paid, okay? And I do want to put this out here again. I mean, I don't know really which way would be the best way to go for any situation we're doing. I don't myself can't recommend, I won't recommend any of these options, one over the other, because that's something that council needs to do, because we had talked about that further down the line. You got to look at this 10, 15 years down the road, when we got to replace all these concrete curbs. It's going to be extremely costly for the borough. And that's the main thing that I try to stress right off the bat, And then that's why I laid these options out there. This is just basically, like I said, for the milling company to come in there on option 1, to mill the curbs down, for us to put the membrane down. We got to do some repairs on, we'd have to replace the tops on the catch basins. We're gonna have to probably move mailboxes. Then there's gonna be labor work, jackhammering work and some other stuff, labor costs. All these costs that I put down here are somewhere in the park. One way or the other, it's gonna somewhere cost as close to what I put down there.
Why is removing more less expensive
Yeah.
than milling?
I thought it would be the other way around, right?
Removing
there
it?
something, is there something? missing?
Well, removing it, I mean, for us to remove it, because we have our
Is
guys,
that how you have it?
we would have our guys in there removing them with the excavator, okay? For us to dig them out, so we're gonna be digging those out. I'm figuring it's gonna take us every bit of 4 full days, with, all the guys, probably 2 machines down there to take out that, that amount of curb. And I'm just guessing at that. I mean, it could take us longer. I don't know that.
Is there, what about disposal of that?
We'd have to probably dispose them over in our dump area where we dump our materials, okay? That's why that price is down a little, it's different there. It's still gonna take us a lot of manpower. It's gonna take us manpower to do that. It's gonna take trucks and equipment, so, you got fuel costs and other things added to that, which is always hard to tell. It's hard to figure that out. Unless I went back and put with each equipment, piece of equipment, rental, if you rented it out, what it costs per hour, then you're talking, you're talking a lot higher prices on that. I know, like I said, the best option.
Well, the one thing you didn't mention here, that we talked about on the road tour, was if we continue to patch what's bad, now we have an appearance of those curbs that are all
Yes.
checkerboard. We have new pieces of curb.
And that's what's happening. All the residents are, everybody, now they're seeing a bigger volume of it, because we've been doing this for the last 4 years now, okay? At a bigger volume than we've ever done. And that's the reason why the residents are seeing it now. And they're starting to complain because it looks like they're checkerboard. Okay, so that's another thing. And even those areas that we did the concrete replacement already, sooner or later, the other sections of that, they're gonna go bad. It's all gonna have to be at some point either curbs taken out or milled off, or somebody to come in there for us to take the curbs out and hire somebody to come in there with slip form concrete formers and put new curbs back in there, which is gonna be extremely costly. And that's the reason why I'm throwing it out there, it's something that, that we gotta look at, further down the line, probably 10, 15 years down the line here, it's gonna hit us, it's gonna hit us big.
Well, I know you had, Tom, had some concerns about option one in terms of where the asphalt would be, the old concrete curb. But now it seems, we thought that would be less expensive, now it seems to be the most expensive option, so. You're the engineer on council.
I would recommend at this point option two. At least for the one road, let's see how it goes. Because once we do this, next time it needs paved 15 years down the road, it's just gonna be a matter of milling the wedge curve off.
Exactly, milling that off and done.
So it's a one-time cost that, you don't have the bad appearance of the concrete being patched, footwork and that's an older street, Fox Chase, and I'm sure we're only gonna do a few. It's gonna really look bad after you go in there and just patch what's bad now. It's gonna be so much better looking if we did option two, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah, if you go back with the asphalt curbs all the way around, the appearance is definitely gonna be a lot better.
Let me ask you this, Gary, since we picked Fox Chase as the test case, just to talk about it. You know what the cost would be to just remove and patch and replace just what Fox Chase needs this time? I know that next.
You mean for the concrete,
Yeah.
repaired concrete patches in it?
Yeah, like how much would you think you would spend if you were gonna patch Fox Chase right now? I'd like to.
I don't even, I'd
You'd
have
know how
to,
many-
I'd have to go back and see the market, try to mark out with, where the bad spots are. Probably Fox Chase probably isn't quite as bad as a lot of these other. If I got over into, where, over in your plan over there, yours and John's plan over there. There's a lot of areas over there. I mean, because we already have that in Sandhurst over by the mayor's place, Sandhurst Drive. They all have a lot of repairs to be done on concrete over there. They're probably in worse shape than what Fox is. Fox Chase actually could probably, I'd have to take a little bit better look at it. It could probably actually be milled and paved and maybe still get away with it for one more time with paving, maybe look at another spot. But like I said, it was just, we looked at that being a test spot as a possibility of, removing,
Yeah,
taking it,
What do we budget, 230,000 curb repairs and see, is that what it was?
for,
Curb repairs just for 2023? Something.
Yeah,
we
like that.
budgeted, I think around 250, 400, yeah, they
So,
Yeah.
so
They
for
came
5
in-
miles, Tom?
they
let's break
came in
that
at,
down.
came in at 189,000 on with Columbo's
Okay.
bid was on the concrete there. But that's sooner or later, that's all gonna go up higher and higher
Oh, yeah.
because everybody's getting, each of them get a little,
So it could be comparable, really, 0.6 of a mile.
I guess what I'm getting to, Gary, is if it's gonna cost as much to patch the curbs on that road, now you're telling me that we may be able to get away with that. We picked an example where we might get away with it. Not an excessive amount of patching, but if we're taking a road that we're gonna spend more this time to patch it than it would be to remove them, it seems like a no-brainer. Because
well, to give you an idea, we're gonna be, Royal Oak is one of the roads on the paper. Royal Oak and Squire Ridge are on the paving program.
Right.
There's approximately 1,600 feet of curb up there right now that needs repair. And that's on the list that Columbo's gonna do to repair. So there's at least 1,600 feet on Royal Oak and Squire Ridge right now that needs repair. And I know there's nowhere near that on Fox Chase, like I said, doesn't have a big amount, but we looked at that basically saying, okay, this is concrete.
what the unit is to remove and replace, it's like $30 a foot or what?
On the concrete, what we're paying right now.
Yeah.
I think we're paying, I know N&N just finished up on the one they had, it was $55 a foot.
Oh, wow.
$55 a foot. This one, Columbo, I think is $62 or $63 what we're paying for a concrete replacement.
You're talking $100,000 in this thing. for 1,600 feet of it.
Oh, yeah, yes, yeah.
For 1,600 feet over there, you're talking nearly $100,000.
Yeah.
Sean, you have any thoughts on option 1 or 2?
I don't have it, but just from what I could gather, I can tell you that I actually agree with Tom in that, long term, even if you put some sort of bridge over, you're going to have reflective cracking.
Right.
It's okay and everybody knows and we can live with it, that's okay, but it's going to happen. You're gonna see the joint there as concrete expands, tracks. Where we've seen this most often, they've popped out the curb, put down binder, base, and then pave on top. It's not wrong to do it the other way, but just know that, like anything in life, the pros and cons.
And I put down in there, like if we pull the curb out, I was putting down as like a 2A material back here for, that's the material I was thinking of putting down for compaction or something, which we can do, possibly a binder, even that part there, you know. But,
So we're talking about option 1, is that what you? 2.
Two.
Okay, just to take the curve out. Basically. Now, I was talking to, Gary, one of your predecessors, and, he said that McCandless has actually done this by doing the milling process. And they did it a few years ago in some of their roads,
milling the curbs off.
milling the curves off. So I don't know whether those roads have shown the cracking or not, those might be worth a call.
That's an idea, John, but that process costs more than removing them, almost double.
Yeah, right, but 2 points about that. Number 1, I think it's the right process. Number 2, is our staff have the time? And, you know, that's a discounted price probably because it's our staff.
That's I say, I don't have trucking, I don't have machines and stuff in there, equipment in there, equipment prices on top of
Yeah,
that.
so
I just put labor, limestone, you know, the materials and stuff that we, you know, need to remove it, you know.
If you were
So
to
that's
bid
gonna
them,
be,
sorry, if you were to bid them, I think they're probably give or take in the same ballpark,
Do you think it would be?
relatively.
Okay. Bid 1 and 2 are bid.
Yeah, I'm saying if you weren't doing it in-house, if you were paying a contractor to
Okay.
pop the curbs out,
Okay.
backfill, that sort of thing, you're probably in the same ballpark as, what Gary's presented here for your production.
But then the real advantage to Austin too is when it's done forever. Every time you do it, you just mill it like,
just mill it off and pave it.
it's so awesome pay, but like they do with, like the Street Island one. You just mill it down every time and build a new wedge.
And time wise, I mean, it's, you know, something we'll have to, you know, we'll have to fit in. I mean, we get it, actually, I was gonna throw into my report. I mean, I'm set up to probably, our milling is set up for paving this year starting on the 24th. So I got a couple weeks here now that I got a few jobs on a few of the stormwater projects that we're trying to finish up. And then when I get them finished up here, I could even have possibly guys in between starting on something like that too, you know.
And then the 2 can be a trial thing too. If it doesn't work out the way we thought it would, we can reevaluate. So,
One concern I have, if there's no major curb repair needed on Fox Chase for the concrete, you think we might be able to, maybe just a few little pieces? Well, I don't think I'd remove it at this paving cycle. I would probably, we don't have to do this test case this year.
No.
Maybe, and you're saying over at Squire Ridge and Royal Oak, you've got those already contracted for the patching.
Yes.
But I think going forward, let's pick a road for next year and say, we're gonna remove it here, because there's a lot of curb. Let's pick one that's
Maybe like
really
field
bad.
Well, we can do that, like I said, back in like King John, King Williams, all those over there.
I think we do that, Gary.
Those areas over there. I can't do it over in Royal Oak because we have to have, we bid that out, so
yeah,
we
right.
gotta give them the 3,000 feet that they got the bid.
Why don't we pick a place that has a lot of concrete patching and then do that one as test case, rather than Fox Chase that only have a little bit.
But isn't Fox Chase on the schedule to be repaid?
Fox case is on the schedule.
What he's
Looks
saying
good
is
to
there's
them.
minimal concrete repairs needed. There's
Right,
not-
right,
The concrete curb over there is not bad compared to some of the other roads.
right, but still we have to come back and do it, and then the next time it gets repaid.
Well, it's 15 years down the road, then we're gonna move that.
But the concrete's gonna last 15, and maybe so.
Probably.
Okay,
5 houses on it.
right, good.
It's the shortest, what was that?
Probably too.
Goes on and on.
I mean, council agree, I mean, I think everyone was on, Brian, you may not, you were on the road.
Yeah,
We were all on the road.
Yeah, we
What do you,
started,
what do you think?
we hated the patchwork.
I mean, that,
Started
that,
talking
that would,
about-
that would probably be better. Like I said, Fox Chase, like you said, Fox Chase isn't, I'll take a better look at it to see, it doesn't need,
It didn't look
it
bad.
doesn't need a lot of repairs. It's old and doesn't need a lot of repairs. And I know that that's what we had talked about, that was gonna be, that's the reason why that went about. And because we had complaints about the road being paved, so that was added on. I thought that might be a good place to start, but I do agree that, you know, it might be better off if we did try something with a lot worse, you know, curb on it, it would probably be better.
Save money.
That's why I asked you, that's why I asked you if you had an estimate on what the curb repair in concrete would be on Fox Chase. If you tell me it's only $5,000 worth of patching needed for the whole street, then it doesn't make sense on this cycle to spend a
Well,
lot.
that one we didn't do, but like I said, that was added on this year, so I was going about the ones, you know, on the ones that we had the concrete work on, so. I mean, I could get that to you if you want, but
No, I think
it still might be the best thing to.
We don't where it really makes a lot
And
of
if we don't sub any concrete work out for next year, then that's a good way to start early spring. We can get into it and, you know, get in there, and, you know, some areas and pop some curb on and try it.
Yeah, and especially now that we have input. Yeah, people generally go with the option too. I think that's what we were kind of trying to get at, anyway, wasn't it? To see what works best for us.
Yes.
You have a plan?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, regular meeting agenda, Mac.
So in my report, I have a birthday as well as a choir concert, so I will not be in attendance on May 17th. But Harley Stone, you might recall, was representing the residents, the HOA over the Purdy Event House. Some years back, he joined our firm December of last year. He represents Shaler, Aleppo, Glen Osborne, and others. So lined him up to attend. Let him know he's got one conditional use hearing to go through. That's the Rabel Garage. It's been recommended for approval from Planning Commission and has been posted and is ready to go. He'll have a script and he'll run that hearing. In terms of other items on the agenda, we have highlights here from Sean in terms of Deerfield Estates. They hit their number right on the nose. That was like the first time I've seen that in a while, but good for them. So that is on the agenda. Willow Ridge just got the report today or yesterday, I guess, from Sean that they are good to go. So the standard motion we have on there is to release their performance bond and have them do a maintenance bond and do an ordinance for acceptance. Something along those lines. Kathy's looking at me quizzically. So
Wouldn't talk about
that's
that.
number 7. Number 8. Yes, so you can see we have 2 number 8s, an and or an or. Yeah, they are coming, this is the Bliss plan, are coming to the end of their completion period as 2 years in their development agreement, tied into their set aside agreement that provides financial security. As our usual course, we contacted them about 3 months ago just to let them know that time period was coming and asking if they wanted to do an addendum to extend that period of time, as well as increase the amount of their performance security by 10% per year, or if they think they will be ready to go. They responded, no, they will be ready to be 100% done by May. I think 19th is technically the date of their completion period, but tied to the 17th. We have done last month a review They are not done. They are not probably close to being done within the next 2 weeks or so. So we have alternatives here. We'll prepare the addendum, as we do in the usual course. Sort of held off on that, but that is a slight expense to them. We'll reiterate the amount of financial security that needs to go along with that and send that off in advance of the meeting. And let them know that the other option is take steps to seize the security, which nobody wants. They don't want that. Have some work to do over the next. Other items here, the ordinance for the updates, the municipal claims section has been advertised, will be up for a vote, no public hearing needed. The Doherty eminent domain action has also been advertised and is up for action. Selling things, proclamation. There was one more. Yes, that was it. I looked at the Authorities Act, does talk about doing this via resolution or ordinance. Recall we had a discussion previously when the tax change said resolution or ordinance, but that was also to be enacted by the school districts. School districts can't do ordinances, so we interpret that and said we have to do an ordinance in that instance. Municipality Authorities Act is only applicable to municipal. The definition of municipal authorities is actually the governing body of the municipality, but essentially municipalities are given the option to do it via resolution or ordinance. It has been set up as a resolution. The requirement is first and foremost, MFPAA needs to pass their resolution saying they're going to request the extension of time. I believe they said they did that. Yeah. That is the first trigger. Then it's up for us. The canvas will need to do it as well. Once those are done, MFPAA needs to advertise and file an amendment to their articles of incorporation to extend the period of their existence for an additional 50 years. So. Hopefully the canvas. But that is on the agenda, also does not require a public hearing.
What property is motion 17 applied to?
Probably one of ours.
Oh, it does, yeah.
It's the one that that's example.
Probably the.
Hang on 1 second.
Small man.
No,
That's
no.
covered.
We
We filed authority.
It is, vacant land by Blueberry Hill Park. It is the 10 acres Stuff City Road. And 2634 Big Circle Creek.
The other, yeah. Yes, we filed 3 applications, as of March 31st. Reach has done the site tour with the assessor. Pretty confident to them. One of them is the barn property, which they denied last year.
Is that the barn or is that the acreage of that?
It's what do you? So the barn and the house is one
Yeah.
lot that
And
was
then we
denied last year. The Graff property. So we've applied for the Graff property, Duff City Road. We've reapplied a second time with, references to the community garden and the parking, even though the community garden's on the other parcel that was made exempt last year. And provided them copies of the architectural plans, renovations of the farmhouse. And then we have that other landlocked parcel on the edge of Blueberry. That should not be an issue. Still awaiting decisions. We've done the interviews in the second.
Any other questions for Max?
motion 18, the schedule of fees. How were the fees that were increased, the rates that were increased in those, how are those decided? Not certain, that's all.
Like the Indy and timber sales.
That's me. Yeah, so they were, ICC puts a publication out between ICC, International Code Council and Marshall Swift up in Alabama. And they, published a national standard for costs. So rather than taking, everybody's, word for it as far as their costs, we put a dollar amount every square foot, and then everybody's on the same playing field with the cost of construction. So cost of construction probably went up 30%, because our previous resolution, the cost of construction was from 2000.
Yeah, and there's some permitting changes to it, so it costs.
Yeah, like,
There should be full permit change.
yeah, because they were.
They're really low.
You know, we're spending more time inspecting everything.
I was gonna check, are you comfortable that you raised them enough,
I
basically?
think so. When you get, a shed permit's $25.
Yeah.
And so now it's doubled.
Yeah,
$50 is the normal for a shed or a fence or something like that, because, we do have effort for it. We're not only preparing a permit, we're reviewing it, and we're also going to the field inspecting it when it's done, just making sure it's there. So
yeah.
there's, we may be getting beat on that, but I think it's a fair price.
Okay, maybe we'll look at it again next.
Anything else?
Yeah, are these just like ad hoc reviews? They're not like it's not like, we're not at like an annual cycle right now, right? It's just came up and,
When you mean reviews?
like the ones that you updated here, the ones that are like highlighted.
See what triggered the.
Yeah, it's not that we're like every May you do this, it's more.
No, we just, it was fine.
Okay.
Yeah, we realized that, actually, we don't get as many houses and permits that we've issued in the past, because everything slowed down a lot. We run out of lots and things like that, but we still have costs. So,
And this was triggered to the change in the system too.
yes, yeah. because
That's why it's a little hot for the
Yeah,
annual.
this is gonna allow us to get in there and do that without a lot of extra.
All right, let's see, we're up to, reports from staff. Cindy?
Everybody have my written report? I think the only thing I just wanted to add to let everybody know, we did have a spring cleanup on Saturday for the DAC. We had 28 volunteers in total, some members of the council were there. Brian, you did, Dr. Lee, thank you, it was great. I think, when we had the EAC meeting on Monday, we collected, I think they pulled away 70 bags of garbage, which was double from last year, so that's great. And there was a bunch of tires, I don't know how many tires.
I saw them.
I actually didn't get the tires yet.
We got all
So,
Pieces of house, pieces of car.
yeah, there was a lot of,
Representative Venkat was there and he had like these big black bags. He was collecting like big pieces of garbage.
it was a lot.
Yeah.
So it was a little rainy, a little cool, but it was great. And everyone, there was some residents that volunteered that expressed, not to me, but to Steph and one of the other people on the EAC, that they were just happy that they had an event they could come help with, that it was very tangible, they volunteered for something where they could see that they made a difference. So that was.
It was nice because it was well organized. I mean, we had the police, traffic, and it felt safe. I had my
Yeah,
two kids
exactly.
there. And I felt safe that they were participating
Yeah,
in it, that they weren't gonna get run over.
Exactly. And all the traffic, people roll down their windows, thank you. So, that's great. Everything worked out, except I did have the committee put all the garbage in the wrong dumpster. So I apologize again to Zach for that. Turns out there's lots of dumpster at Blueberry, not specifically right by the activity center where that trash should have gone. I know for the future.
Did he make you lose it?
No, but the forest supervisor for the activity center, I think they were ready to get, Sam's crew on it. I thought, oh God, sorry, I did not know.
They'll find you.
I know, that's what I thought. Oh gosh, one of the EAC members gets like a call from the police, like that's just gonna look bad. No one's gonna be happy.
When's the next one?
We don't have another cleanup plan. They're talking about trying to do like a green up day in Acorn Park for, get to the construction there in June, but I'm not sure, they talked about, I guess a fall cleanup typically isn't as well attended maybe as a spring cleanup. The grass is a lot higher, it's harder to get to the trash underneath the grass. But they talked about maybe the same roadway, I guess, they talked about maybe doing like a stream cleanup in the stream. We didn't really go in the water, but they talked about doing that in the summertime when it was, a lot lower, so. I'm not sure.
Some of those banks are pretty.
Yeah, exactly. I thought the kids might have fun, but that's what we talked about Monday night. It could be a liability waiting to happen.
Give me the meeting.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
the same stream you tired. Further away, firemen's.
Fireman's home, it's on 2.5 years later, right?
Yeah.
So it was a nice event, I think. So there's some pictures up on the Facebook page, on the website, everything like that. That's it. I don't have anything else.
Question for Cindy? Gary?
The only thing I'd add to my report there is, I mentioned about the, we're finishing up with a couple stormwater projects. One on Reach Run, one on Irving Drive. And then we had finished up the golf course, parking lot paving over there. All the, work, the extra stuff we get backfilled, everything's done over there. All finished up. And that's all I have, other than that.
And I know Jim had a question, in his report about lines. Figure that out, parking lines and parking.
Yeah, we had talked, I got him a number, they talked about, it, and I guess he's gonna talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, well. Pleased to announce that, since we're short administrative staffer, there was no zoning hearing board or planning commission applications. this month, which is a godsend. So,
Just missed. Yeah, I was just.
so, just grinding away with permits. And, what we can do here without administrative assistance, so hopefully that's probably,
Search ongoing.
I think so.
Ongoing. Any questions for Tim? Zach?
All right, you have my report. There's a couple things I want to go over with Acorn and our grant. The first one's pretty easy. The dirt pump track area, we have received a bid. I received another number that was 4 times as much. So I presented you with the one that I feel is the one we should go with. That is through American Ramp Company. The contracted price is for $75,000. The only thing that we may see cost increases on is we are contracted to bring in the fill at 1,300 ton. It's in the contract. I just missed it. Sorry. But if we don't have enough fill to get to them, we'll have to bring it in from somewhere else. I know we've been using a lot here in other places.
But you had talked about on that bill too, that you were saying that knowing some of that stuff would work and having the fines and stuff like that. If we had.
They don't think it's gonna work.
Did you ask them about that?
Yeah, I asked them. They don't think it will. They're not gonna have an absolute until they come out and sample everything.
Well, they want just dirt.
1,300 ton. Yeah, clean fill. Yeah. Yeah, because the whole goal of Acorn is to keep it nature themed, natural. So instead of doing a lot of these tracks now are essentially paved. We want to keep it into a tight packed dirt, just to, like I said, keep the more aesthetically natural look of Acorn with our theme of things. So if we're good with that proposal, I can get that one signed off on. Lead time is probably 5-6 months out. So this is a project. That's why I want to get started on these, because Acorn has to be done by the end of 24. And this one's already September, October, you're looking at to even break dirt on.
The pictures look great.
Well, those are the playgrounds. what do we feel? Are we good with the pump track moving forward?
Yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to playgrounds. So we have two proposals. We have one from Schneider Rec and we have one from Play and Park. Schneider Rec did our flooring up in Old Orchard when we redid it. They've also done the playgrounds at Ingomar Elementary, a couple other local places. Play and Park have done our newest gazebos, pavilions, the O'Keefe and the one at the golf course, as well as the large structure at Blueberry. They're both companies we
that replaced the
flooring. That was Schneider. Yeah. So we haven't done a playground through Schneider, but Ingomar Elementary has. So you can see their work. They're both, yeah, there's nothing, they're both reputable companies. The Schneider came in at 153. It's a little smaller of a playground. Play and Park is at 159. A little more elements to that playground than the other. I'll be honest, I don't like Play and Park's color scheme, but that's an easily changed thing.
Like the structure better though.
It offers more
Seems
to do for minimum cost. You know, that was,
What options in that 4 and 5? Is that where
I'm looking at pages 110, 111, 112 would be the
right?
the second.
What color scheme do you like? The 111, 111?
yeah, there's an orange and dark green theme, and then there's a lime green and light wood theme.
Looks a lot like our logo. Number option 2.
Yeah, the lime
That's why
screams a little to me. I think it's a little bright for that area. I think we would want to kind of have it fade in a little more with the woods that sit around it. I think that's my only,
Yeah, the color scheme would push would probably.
yeah, and that's what, and I think that's, yeah, I like the color scheme on the first one.
Yeah. The structure on the second one, I think that's good. We just think.
Mhm.
I like the, like you said, like the color scheme.
So we're thinking
There's a lot of shade at that park, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, this playground sits at the opening, but yeah, everything else is, that park is nothing but. Yeah,
One
that's,
thing I noticed from being the connoisseur of parks is that the colors, these dark colors get really hot on slides for the kids. They can be hot at 10 o'clock in the morning, summer day. So the lighter the colors, the better. But I'm thinking that dark, you did go with that dark green, that you have to watch that it's not in direct sunlight all the time.
this playground is generally canopied in the summertime. It's also the reason why we will be doing engineered wood fiber and floor instead of a poured in place. Because honestly, with the canopy, I don't know how that floor, well, first of all, that floor is not natural looking with the theme. Secondly, I don't know with the canopy, how the moisture and almost like mildewy may build on a floor like that with as much coverage that is at that park for a tree canopy.
So is this like a loose material? Or?
Mulch, yeah, engineered wood fiber, you know, they're rounded off so that the kids don't fall in and get stabbed by the wood chips. Safety mulch.
Nice. Okay. All in agreement?
That's good to me.
All right. Mr. Hoff.
All right, submit a report, when it comes to the park side, the infield mix for the ball fields, that was Luke's, email. The infield mix did come in Friday afternoon about 4 o'clock and it's rained since. So, so field 4 will get fixed as soon as it dries up a little. Other than that,
Blueberry patch, they're working on the sunshades. Right at the moment, there's 4 large holes. Hopefully, mid early next week, we'll get the concrete poured and the post up. We'll let that set for a while and then get the actual shade in the next couple of weeks. So that should be up by next week on that. And on the golf course, we finally did fill the full-time position, so that'll help tremendously with Jim Benner, who he's 26 years of experience, so help ease some of the pressure over there. As Gary mentioned, the lot is paved, and with discussions with him and other things, the line painting, which we haven't talked about before. You can talk with Bernie, who's also over there. When they paved Blueberry, that initial first painting, it was cheaper and easier to contract out. They could lay it out quicker. It's a lot more cost effective. With various guys busy, Parks guys very busy. It's that initial are better. They can come in, boom, 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 done. So I'll reach out to the person that Gary had referred me to yesterday and talk with Bernie. It is a very competitive market, so the prices are generally pretty good because everybody's trying to find work and find time to these lots. That's kind of where we're at with that.
I've seen you out there pretty early in the morning cutting grass. It's
pretty
hard keeping up.
Well, with the cold weather last week or so, it's we haven't been as of Friday, we'll probably be starting at 6 in the morning and going from there. Hopefully, we don't have any more frosty mornings. And so
I saw golfers out there today.
there was golfers all week, not many this week compared to this, but they are out there. April was a record month we've ever had by a lot. So it is busy. It is going well.
Fields look great when we got to play on them.
Yeah.
Once they dry out.
Yep. And we got all them taken care of and fertilized. I did do a little more this year than we normally do in experience in the past over, my, time in turf. As mild as our winter was this year, doesn't necessarily always kill off all the, the grub type things that come up out of the ground. So I did, do a little more, fertilizing areas so that and hopefully in the fall, we don't have tons of turf repair from, raccoons and skunks looking for their food. So hopefully that's beneficial.
So, any questions for Jim? All right, Sean.
Thank you. I actually think we hit most about my updates along the way. So just briefly, we talked about curb and gutter moving forward. This just is an update on the 3 active contracts. 2022, we did in the contract to come back to fix a handful of spots on Countryside Lane. So those were done for the maintenance bond. No argument, probably needed fixed. 2023, we're working through closeout and final pay request in. So as we talk next month, that one should be done and off the list. And the contractor Palumbo for 2024 has started work. So you'll see them out there working. And then Max mentioned the other couple updates, development related. Deerfield, the bulk of the bond reduction was just sidewalks in front of the constructed houses. I saw they put the piece of sidewalk towards Taylor Ridge there. That was the bulk of the bond reduction. And Willow Ridge, last item left was some ponding in the stormwater basin. We did some repairs and met with the developer, his contractor. Those have been addressed. So like I mentioned earlier, it's ready for council's consideration to take the public infrastructure there. With that, Bill, relatively short update, but that's what I have for this evening.
Any questions? No. Lieutenant.
Remember, were you gonna give an update on the chief?
I would like to do that in executive session.
Okay, yeah. Just some stuff we'll cover in a executive session, everything.
Okay. All right. Max.
I hit my items, reviewing the agenda. We'll talk about the street opening ordinance draft next. Couple items for executive session.
Okay. We're into the street or open. So.
Sure. Sometime back, we had discussions regarding street permits in borough streets. both for, utilities primarily, but, other needs to get underneath a street for potentially water lines or drainage, et cetera, et cetera. We did not have an ordinance, of any major significance. So working with Anna Hosek in our office, she reviewed a number of other model ordinances and put together a detailed ordinance that addresses these types of scenarios and issues. We've had some preliminary discussions with Gary, probably want to have a meeting with Sean, Reed, just sort of see if this meets the needs of the borough. Because although you can pull certain things off of the shelf, we want to make sure that we're addressing the issues that come up here. We have been looking at some inquiries from Westview Water about getting the current permit, in place, and a question of whether or not they need one, what their repair responsibilities will be, what costs are associated with those applications. So I believe the draft was in a meeting packet. I don't know if we did it again. It's in this one, right? So if you have it as well, we're not intending to introduce it at the May 17th meeting. We are continuing to talk about it, but take a look, and if anything jumps up in terms of a question or concern, it's still a draft and still a working.
I like it. I thought it was pretty comprehensive.
And I think there's some discussion at ALOM about the need for these. It's in the
Yeah.
811 and bunch you can dig in. Well, yeah, we'll continue to work and either provide revisions or say this is what we're suggesting and move forward with introduction and connect.
The right of way enforcement, does that cover we had a little conversation about utilities helping themselves to right of ways and digging up and putting stuff down. It was like a month ago or something. There was an issue about that. We didn't know who was
Yeah.
doing it or what was going on.
That wasn't in the actual street. I mean, that
No, it was in the
in
right of way, yeah.
Right of way.
Is that something that would be appropriately covered in there that people would have to go apply for permits before they dig into the right of ways?
It'd be a little bit different just because, I mean, they have easements underneath our streets and our interest there is preserving the street.
Mhm.
If you're in that yard area, grass area or so, we don't have the same, it's not our responsibility to mow that grass, it's on the homeowners. This is primarily geared at impacts on the curbs and streets, not the total ultimate sidewalks.
I think it'd be nice to have that because like we had that situation where cable companies going through a very front door. We didn't even know they were working. They were in their easement,
Yeah.
presumably. Up in the third
It'd be
ward.
nice to know that something's going on like that before it happens, right? So we can say to the residents, they're coming through.
Yeah, even-
Well, that's what we'd have to sort of consider and look at, 'cause, I mean, PUC jurisdiction or so. And the reason why we can have a permitting process in place is because they're impacting our surface, our roadway, not so much in the grass and the dirt. Otherwise.
Not possessory interest there,
Yeah.
so it's hard to say that. You can't be digging in that
Yeah,
right
like-
away.
50-foot right of way, there is
Yeah.
the ultimate area. I don't know if they would have a separate easement within it or fix it as a utility easement
I
wherein
think the whole right of way.
Out.
I
protected.
think, yeah, I think there's a lot of information out there through this state township association, things like that. Because we have utilities, that's too, it's no storm sewer.
Mhm.
So, it impacts, all the utilities impact each other when you do it. And I was very involved with that when I was Adams Township many years ago. And there was actually a lot of information and that area couldn't be permitted because you want to also put them back into.
Coordinate.
Yeah. Maybe some repair.
Sounds like it's worth pursuing.
I mentioned something too, is I actually had another call again, yesterday about an area over off Matterhorn Drive. I think the question is, you know, the thing everybody's asking is why aren't we being notified when these utility companies are coming in? Well, one call system doesn't have a way to do that. And that's still a question that I got again on this second call is how are these utility companies coming in and being allowed to go ahead and just come through our right and go through the right of ways without notifying the residents? And I think that's what everybody's looking at. They're looking at ways to where the residents will be notified prior to somebody coming in and doing any kind of underground, whether they're boring it or digging it or whatever. It's still, I mean, probably be a good idea somewhere along the line if there was a way to figure out a system where the residents can know, you know, what the flags are being in the yard.
Yeah.
Are they staging from our street? I mean, do they park equipment and then kind of go in? And that's potentially.
Problem
At
is,
least
if
they
they're setting up, they're digging big holes in people's front yards to put boring machines in.
Well, what the people are seeing is they're seeing marks on the street. They don't know what they just know that something's coming.
So flags, we get a lot of calls, why are there white flags in my yard, blue flag, yellow flag?
Cole Road is a bad one there. About a month ago, the amount of flags that was on Cole Road.
Well, there was like 5 different colored flags and they were all over people's planes. That's everything. I'm sure it was for underground cable. But, you know, as far as I know, we weren't notified at all.
We don't, that's what we tell residents, we get no notification.
Not very reassuring. The records. Is there, Gary, I don't know, I've never personally talked to the one call system, but is there a way that as a borough, we can contact them to find out who is requested?
You can find out who where the one call come from, you know, some of the one where they come from, but it doesn't, you know, like I said, they have no way of notifying all the residents on that street, letting them know who's doing it. They'll give you the information, when it comes through our system and that we have down at the garage. When they go in and look at it, it'll tell where the one call come from or where, you know, who put it in and, you know.
They do publish a code color for various flags.
Yes, it's for everything, yeah.
I think we have
that.
that, so.
And green, blue, there's, you know,
And
water.
everybody uses it, so if you're doing something in your yard, putting a flagpole in, putting a fence in, you go one call, they're gonna want our call that.
Because if you hit something, you're gonna pay for it.
Yeah, right.
So, and most people think that their connection between the right of way, the street right of way and the house is part of that, but it's not, because the authorities and utilities don't know where that is. That's individual service lines.
You know, I think the problem with the stuff that happened in our whole road area was that every truck that was working there was from the state of Ohio. We're all out of state. None of them had a company name on them. So you had no idea who was performing the work. The only way you could figure it out was to see what they had spools of fiber on reels and they were pulling it. So you figured out it was gotta be some telecommunication company, but a lot of homeowners wouldn't even know what the heck's going on here, who's doing this and why. All I'm saying is, it seemed like there ought to be a way to at least find out who made the call to put all those flags out.
Probably the contract, that's the problem, it would be XYZ contractor who did it, like I say.
Not a clue as
And
to
they'll
why.
be,
Right, I mean,
they're not gonna- Armstrong,
I don't think anyone's gonna complain if Penn Power comes up and they're working on a pole there in the street with their bucket truck and they're there for a half hour. Nobody's gonna care. When you're digging up somebody's yard and street for weeks and weeks on end, nobody has any
And the
idea.
big trucks are parked there, 4 or 5 of them in a row. with their-
It can be a little bit encroaching into your face.
I imagine they're pulling up the turf, right? So
Oh, yeah.
All the sod's gone by the time it's done.
And then a lot of them, they were putting these big used green boxes in everyone's yard that people didn't even know. Like, I found it in my yard.
Wow.
Anyway, I just think it seems like gotta have a little more. I'm not saying we probably have no right to stop it. I'm just looking, you know.
Information.
trigger to require them to There.
Pretty independent. Wedgewood Drive sidewalk extension. Who is able to speak of that?
Range was,
Redwood Range.
I thought, I guess you would probably involved in that.
Yeah.
I know Reeves was talking, and I was talking with him doing that too.
Basically, one of the neighbors up there was beside the lot that was given to the borough. I guess is concerned about the connection, there was a connection, there should be a sidewalk in front of that lot since it's undeveloped, no one's gonna build it, so. I think what
They're well off, but some sidewalks on both sides, though?
It's on one side, not the other.
Yeah, yeah, so,
It just hangs.
so it goes right to the lot, both sides of the lot. And stops.
I think he wanted to put it in this red section, John.
Yeah, I saw that.
I think that's, I mean, this
Yeah.
side seems to have it.
Yeah.
What they were saying too is when they're coming down and they're walking their kids down around the curve there, it's more of a blind curve on the one side that you can't see quite as good. If the sidewalk was extended on the other side, it has more vision in there. And they built that new house right there. I think that the gentleman was in there and built the house there. Was talking about that the other day when I stopped and we were talking about it.
This would be a good option for us to use some of the money that we accrued.
It is our property?
That recommendation.
Yeah, we did that once before in Northmont Farms. This is also. And I think we did some form of, I don't know, they have a homeowners association. But we did something that shifted the responsibility from the property owner to somebody else. Both to maintain snow and ice removal, but also to, when it fails our new objective standards, then it can be us to do it later. So we can dig that one out just to see how we structured.
So it should only be about.
It doesn't seem.
Yeah, that's kind of guess, that's good distance, right on that curve.
Yeah.
Not a lot, right above the North Pond Dam.
Who runs this?
No, that way, it's okay.
I'm not sure. Bruce Kennedy, he usually puts enough salt down that it'll cover it. Bruce gets plenty of salt down, so yeah, you have to make sure they put extra sealer on top of it.
So is that your recommendation? Joanne?
I mean, at least look into it some more and figure out if there's anything that would be unique about this one. I can't remember, when the other ones, they were lots, they weren't old developer lots, or had some other owner. I forget.
It's what I was telling Mr. Parks, I remembered something else in that area, but I don't remember details.
I don't know.
Okay, so we'll check it out.
That's part of the internet. Yeah. Is what that lot was, residual from, just couldn't be built in.
Okay, next item is the manager's report is regarding the grants, and he will update us at the next meeting. Reports from council and mayor. Yes, sir.
You were here for it. We did our land use planning committee meeting and it went fairly well. We covered a bunch of important topics. We talked about underground storage, stormwater runoff, sidewalks. I think I'm all. And speed flows. Yeah.
Traffic.
Traffic. So I'm hoping to schedule another one and continue our work. Seems like it's a worthwhile cause unless somebody disagrees with me, I think. So I know that the rec board has the next committee meeting. Maybe I can put a request in for the committee meeting after that. That's it.
Good. Anything else, Brian? No? You did.
No, it's
Mayor.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about the wonderful work that was done on Earth Day. Up at Lynbrook. And Council President and myself were a little late getting up there because we had road tour that morning, but got up there around 10, it was raining, but that didn't stop anybody. And It was, I think it was pretty much sponsored by the Penn State Extension. I was trying to find a little bit
Yes.
on that was, but, and there, besides them, there was a lot of volunteers there from here. And what was amazing was with all the rain and everything that was going on that day, they planted 250 trees. And that's just not trees, the specific trees. The Penn State Extension determines what's best for that particular area to help the creek, basically. And the trees were, they had little flags everywhere where a tree was gonna go. And there was a specific tree that was gonna go into that specific spot. You can correct me if I'm wrong, John, but that's the way I remember it. And,
That's correct.
am I right?
Yes.
And, Reach, our borough manager, is amazing. He just was really indulged and he's big into all this. He really works hard. He was carrying the plants, he was carrying the trees, he was doing the planting, he was everywhere. You can add to that, John.
You stole my thunder. That's a perfect description. It was a very intriguing morning. It was cold and rainy, but that didn't stop anybody. And,
No.
It was nice to see the long range impact is a very positive one environmentally. That those trees, as Dennis pointed out, were selected based upon being part of a watershed. And they were various types put in the various areas and it'll have a positive impact on that creek for a long time to come.
Yeah, and the life that lives in there too, they were talking to us about the life that lives in the creek.
Oh, yes, yeah. The amount of biology within the creek itself
Right.
is fascinating.
Right. Quite amazing. It's a real asset to Franklin Park, a real asset.
We're lucky to have that
To that park, yeah.
be part of that watershed for sure.
Right. That's it.
John, to add to that too, with those plants that are there, one of the things I talked with Reed about with Mary that's on board with Parks now is recording what was planting, where it was planted, and eventually tagging them. So with a number system, so that any resident in the future and any future plants that we do plant trees within each park will have a tag and they'll be able to go onto our website at some point and know what kind of tree that is. If they want it for their, so that's something I talked to Reed. It'll take time. But, those little flags that had those, they're
Yeah.
still there right now, so that hopefully here in the near future, because I know they want their flags back, and they use them for other plantings, so that's another thing I talked with Reed about as well.
Yeah, great. But I understand you were gonna put a deer protector.
Most of the
around it.
cages around, yeah, they've been working on that, and it turns out the chicken wire is not cheap anymore. But we do have, we did cage them all individually, to help keep the wildlife away so that they have a fighting chance, going forward as well. So,
And with their experience too, they were identifying invasive plants.
Yes, right.
Yeah. And we need to, take care of and, get them out. That's it.
Good to see all these efforts on the greening of Franklin Park.
Yeah.
The picking up of the trash in the Franklin River Road, that's a wonderful thing. This was a great, good, positive experience for Dennis and me. Good all around. Eva, Dr. Lee.
Yeah, I have one thing, and I've been approached by a few residents and living in the Dickinson Wood and where I live, and 2 weeks ago, and one resident was hit by a car, and with the kind of like probably drive a little bit fast. So they asked for the possibility of the kind of like install a speed bump at the entrance of this community. Is that possible that
Where, which community?
Nichols Wood,
Nichols
yeah,
Wood.
Nichols Wood that I live, and so the residents just approached me and asked for the possibilities, because if you go to that my community and you will go like down like that, and the slope is quite, how would I say, like little bit sharp or something, and the people usually don't pay attention, so they can go quite fast. And so that's why they ask the possibility whether we can install like the speed bump at the top near the entrance of this community.
That's an interesting proposition. Speed bumps have their own challenges. Quite often they are put in and then they're subsequently taken out because they make noise. The neighbors complain, and they break tires and create problems. But I'll turn it over to the experts, Gary and.
Exactly, well, that's exactly what happens. There's so many pros and cons about them, and most of the places you see them when they're put in, a lot of people don't like them after they're put in, and they try to do what they can to try to get them out. And especially the ones that are living by them, some don't like them because they get to a point where cars slow down, not to go over them, but then as soon as they get to the other side, they speed up because they're mad because they had to go over a speed bump, or they're going too fast and then they make a lot of noise. The piles are really rough.
What about, I know we did this for the school, by the school, Lenore, if you remember, painted lines and signs reminding people they need to slow.
Yeah.
Some, we were able to do that ourselves. It didn't involve PennDOT, it didn't involve anything. It's just, we did it as a community. Maybe we can do something like that for them.
Well,
Yeah, that's
if there's a consistent history of problems there, and it's certainly something worth looking into, is this just an isolated incident or has it?
it's I've noticed that the people, as I mentioned, that for my community, and as I mentioned, they kind of like when you get into the community, there's kind of some sort of like slope, and so you go down, and sometimes if you don't pay attention, even for me, and sometimes I kind of notice that the speed is, because the speed limit is 25, but you can easily go past the kind of like 25. So Brian's idea might be good, and they just draw the line and just a yellow color or something like that. And
Also, it's just basically a general policy rule in Franklin Park, we don't have speed bumps. And where we've had them, we've taken them out. And one of the major issues with speed bumps is they slow down cars, but they also slow down police cars. They also slow down firing. So that's one of the big issues with speed bumps is slowing down emergency equipment.
That's okay. And right now, I think probably draw line like 2 or 3, like a yellow line, and probably it's at the
Is
near the
that hard to
entrance.
do, or is that?
Yeah.
Gary, is that hard to do?
Like
The line-
the lines across the road.
Yeah, like we did over by Lenora as you cross the, to get into the school. Because what it did is it kind of reminded
There's a stop sign though there.
Yeah.
They were put near, and that was one of the reasons why that particular thing seemed to work.
it
I
did,
don't know.
'cause it was almost like a stop, it was like a
Right.
reminder, you're
The
coming to a
reminder,
stop
you
sign.
need to stop
Yeah.
here. It's one more thing to remember to stop, so.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's the same scenario or not, where you're talking about.
No,
Maybe what we could do is have Gary take a look at where you're talking about and
Yeah.
see what the options might be.
Yeah. I think that they looks like and the coordination like to mail and the speed bump might not be a good idea, but to draw a line just like to remind people and especially driver and they are getting into the community, so they need to like.
I think we're starting to help in a lot of the communities too, is they're starting to use a lot of those little speed signs in them too, the electronic signs in them, which they have like in Settlers Walk.
Slow down in our.
There's some area, even if you had those out possibly with some, we could always put that thermoplastic line across there, some lines across there at some point, buy that if that's what you want,
Gary, why don't you find out where that area is and take a look and come back with a recommendation for what might work.
Thank you. Yes, that's it.
Anything else?
Yeah, that's it.
Tom?
Yeah, nothing much to add, but Dr. Lee, in this PowerPoint I sent you at the start of the meeting, there's about 10 slides that talk about traffic calming. So it's all these different ways to slow down traffic. You may want to read it. It talks about different kinds of speed bumps, different kinds of lines. It's the exact same thing you were just asking about. There's 10 entire slides in there.
Yeah, that's an interesting PowerPoint.
It may give you some other ideas.
That road was installed as a collector street and actually put a planning.
That's what they're showing. They
Yeah,
have a center up.
that would slow things down.
Like George,
Because,
Maybe,
yeah, because that's a.
That's
wider
wide,
road than
that's-
typical.
that's
It
three,
needs to
that's,
be.
that's
Yeah.
three lanes wide for the.
Yeah, they
That
installed.
would slow it down, way down.
that's exactly what they showed them. That's like Georgetown has an
There you go.
island. you know?
Yeah.
That's one of the things to slow traffic down. It's funny, you're talking about it, but there's a whole section in that PowerPoint. on it. You may want to read that. Nothing else.
Luke,
Nothing except for the PowerPoint that I forwarded. I don't know if we want to talk about it tonight, maybe. Get a chance to check it out.
I did, and this is the broadcasting of meetings. What was it?
Oh.
When meetings go off the rails. Yeah, no, I did, I missed that presentation at A-Alarms, appreciated sending it along, and I did circulate it internally with us. One of the attorneys from Melo and Rungo and Melo joined our firm about a year ago, so I had some insight and some background. And basically knowing the amount of work they do for schools and school districts, there's a whole other realm of considerations when you're dealing with FERPA, student privacy, just the level of attention that school boards and school districts have had recently, that it is, you know, a different animal and different scenario dealing with their public meetings, even though they're subject to the Sunshine Act, Political Subdivision Tort Claims Act, you know, et cetera, et cetera. So that was sort of the first take that, you know, it was a bit alarmist, you know, it was trying to get attention, particularly on some of these scenarios about broadcasting or otherwise. I sort of polled, you know, did any of our other communities have a policy in place? And, you know, nobody really does. There's any number of different ways that people have gone to live streaming, have gone to, you know, limited live streaming where there's no interaction. It's more like a webinar based, who hosts them online and for how long. The one I did here, it might be worth considering. One of the communities, you know, hosts it for essentially 30 days until the meeting minutes are adopted, similar to how long we keep recording of the meeting for the purposes of doing that, just so you don't have years and years and years and years of these meetings out there and cherry picked or otherwise. People are interested in it. They've got a limited amount of time to pull them. One concern that I had, you know, in there and sort of shared with the rest of my partners and associates was sort of this concept of editing or, you know, changing or modifying or deleting something that somebody finds offensive, and et cetera, that, you know, the more fingerprints that, you know, the borough has on what actually happened at a public meeting, the more risk there is for potential complaints, First Amendment, et cetera, et cetera. So it is a different scenario when you're dealing with students, something that's clearly a FERPA violation just put out there, a different set of circumstances. I think in terms of, you know, a written policy, I mean, we can work on one, draft one, don't have one that any of the other communities has put together that we could take off the shelf. Yeah, McCandless is looking at an issue that wasn't related to a direct policy in this case right now, but I think it's still worth discussing. Let's say some of those other things about copywriting and prohibiting copying, courts do. It's not something that we need to be as concerned about. And just as long as we're consistent with what we do with meeting videos and otherwise, way to do it. So it's definitely something to still continue to think about and take a look at, that presentation if you haven't. Like I said, they're extreme cases, but there are some good advice and, not only for recording meetings, but public comment, to address and handle that, and how to handle Facebook comments. You're on point there. Get involved in all of that. But we just had, a scenario came up today that somebody posted a wacky, inappropriate, comment on the Facebook for the borough. Take it down or just leave it go type of questions.
We need like a breakout committee to work on this?
I mean, it could be technology committee, it could be technology advisory committee, something for them
What do you, how do you
to
like
think
that?
about.
And then they give us some advice? Does that work?
I've actually forwarded a draft based on our last security to the TAC already for all our technology policies. And that includes a draft of the video conferencing and such recording policy. So I've already forwarded up the TAC looking for input.
So we're getting
Yeah.
there. That's good.
Yeah, sounds good. I think it's good to hear what they have to say.
Good deal. Okay.
Yep.
Anything else? Good. I had one item, we have planned for the council rec board meeting to be part of our work session at the 17th meeting, public meeting. And the issue that we were dealing with is pickleball at Laurel Orchard. We have that meeting scheduled to occur before the public meeting. And those meetings typically don't include public comment. So should we consider the possibility of moving the rec committee meeting to follow the public meeting? Which means we'll be meeting late at night, perhaps, depending upon the length of the public meeting. But it's a question.
No, I don't think we should. I think Zach's gonna report on fall availability. We're gonna talk over options. There's some other things I think we're gonna talk about.
Sounds like you're collecting information and data, which will drive the decision-making process later.
Yeah.
No decisions are being made in that.
Yeah, I think we'll make a
Yeah.
recommendation.
Right.
That's
Well, there'll be a lot of public comment in that regard.
Yeah.
We're aware of that on both sides of that issue. So you're saying that that committee will not make a recommendation to council at that point?
No, I think they will. Sure.
But shouldn't they have public comment first? That's the only thing about it.
Well, I think the public comment can be factored into council's final decision. Well, remember us ever having a committee meeting after. I don't know. I don't think that's.
We've advertised, I mean, it's advertised to start at 6. It reflects, the public comment. Think of other options. You can recess it at 7. You say, well, reconvene afterwards. That'd be one option, but to just sort of push it would be, open it at 6 o'clock and just say, we're just gonna recess it right now until after the meeting. But you could have that discussion. You can hear the public comment in the regular meeting, come back and
Okay.
make a
Fair enough.
recommendation if you want
We'll
to
keep it
change
active.
it.
Okay. Everybody's good with it? Yeah, good day.
So we're gonna follow the standard, right? The standard is basically these council committee meetings. Council gets the data,
Yeah, open to the public.
public to view, right?
Yeah.
As all meetings are.
Mhm.
And we're calling this during our 8 o'clock session.
Where we vote on.
All right. That'll be fine. Okay. Okay, that's all I had. I think we're in executive session. The Oakers and Washington, who has to stay for,